This episode is brought to you by Cologuard. If you recorded songs off the radio for a mixtape, it might be time to screen for colon cancer. The Cologuard test is non-invasive, requires no special prep or time off, and you start screening right from your home. It's just 3 simple steps: set up, sample, and ship. If you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your doctor about the Cologuard test. Available by prescription only. Learn more or request a prescription at Cologuard.com/podcast.
And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth, but this day begins with not such great news. There have been 2 people who were injured, and a gunman is dead after a shooting inside an academic building at Old Dominion University in coastal Virginia. That occurred this morning, according to Old Dominion. The shooter was neutralized after the person opened fire shortly before 10:50 a.m. Eastern Time, of course, at the school's Constant Hall on the campus in the port city of Norfolk. Now, for people who are looking for deeper meanings to this kind of horrible event, Norfolk is the biggest naval base in the country. And it's along with San Diego, which is also a very big naval city. Norfolk is a lot of defense resources, and a lot of the aircraft carrier groups that are now operating in the Middle East would have been based at one point or another in Norfolk, Virginia. In any event, the university said in online alerts that an all clear has been given since the gunman, who has not yet been identified, was neutralized. And yes, they use the term neutralized. There is no longer an active threat to the campus community, the university said. The 2 people injured were in critical condition and taken to Centara Norfolk General Hospital, so said Jennifer Lewis, a spokesperson for the hospital. And there is this, which is also terrible news. The supreme leader of Iran, remember, they have a new supreme leader. It's been revealed that he was probably wounded in some U.S. attacks. He was maybe badly wounded in his legs. We don't know because he hasn't appeared in public. But Mojtaba Khamenei has called for the Strait of Hormuz to be closed, which is a way of saying, I want the international economy to be closed. It could have a devastating impact and could indicate that it is very possible that this war is not going to be quickly decided. We're going to be talking about the war and about how we bring it to a successful conclusion, if that is still possible, with Rich Lowry, who is editor-in-chief of National Review. He'll be joining us later in the show. And we will also be speaking to columnist and reporter Frank Bruni of the New York Times, who has been deeply critical of the war. We will be getting all sides, which I think is important for Americans. Meanwhile, there is still confusion about what we're fighting for and what the end of the war will look like. What there is no confusion about is the cost. The cost is staggering. And the cost, of course, when you talk about protecting human life and protecting our people in uniform who are making, in some cases, the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of their country, it's essential to put aside any questions of cost, because no cost is too high to save the life of Americans, particularly Americans who are operating to make our country safer. And that should be the goal of this war, or of any war, the ultimate goal. On Tuesday, the Pentagon told U.S. lawmakers in a private briefing that preliminary estimates suggest the war with Iran cost at least $11 billion in its first 6 days. You can do the math. That means nearly $2 billion a day. Now, on day 13, the Middle East conflict is escalating on multiple fronts, with Iran launching new attacks on foreign oil tankers and a fuel storage facility in Bahrain set ablaze. Kuwait's international airport has also been hit by drones earlier today, causing damage but no reported injuries. Meanwhile, Israel is targeting military checkpoints in Tehran with drone strikes. That, according to Iranian state media, Israel said it also launched another large-scale wave of strikes across Lebanon, targeting the militant terrorist group Hezbollah. There's also news, and it's significant news and significant for Americans and for our leaders to acknowledge. A preliminary U.S. military investigation of that bomb that would hit a school. It was largely a girls' school for young girls in Tehran, and it wasn't in Tehran, it was in a nearby city. But a preliminary U.S. military investigation has found that, yes, American forces were responsible for that February 28th missile strike on an elementary school in Minab, Iran. That was the name of the city, that killed at least 165 people, many of them children, little girls. This was one of the deadliest civilian casualty events caused by U.S. military operations in recent decades. Military intelligence officers reportedly relied on outdated information from the Defense Intelligence Agency to label the Shajara Tayyeba Elementary School as a military site. And the building appeared on an approved U.S. target list. The school is adjacent to an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval compound, but satellite imagery shows the school had been walled off from the base since at least 2016, with an outdoor play area visible by 2017. This was a terrible incident, and the United States should feel and express regret that it happened. But then again, if you have directly adjacent to this school a Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval compound, the accidents of war, even with pinpoint accuracy, aiming at the naval base land. And by the way, the indication is that this was not a missile that went off course. This is not some kind of operational failure. It's a failure of information, not realizing how dangerous it would be to hit that IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval compound, how dangerous that would be to the school nearby. Meanwhile, there is more about an examination of dozens of new files in the Justice Department's Epstein library, in which have found that Sarah Ferguson, the ex-wife of former British Prince Andrew, who's now known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, that Sarah Ferguson sought to lean on Jeffrey Epstein for financial help and continually showered Jeffrey Epstein with praise, including after his 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor. Separately, yesterday, Epstein's longtime accountant, we mentioned this on the show, testified on Capitol Hill that he never saw any financial transactions that were red flags about abuse and trafficking, as he faced investigators for roughly 7 hours as part of the House Oversight Committee's probe. The committee sought answers on how Epstein made his money, how he spent it, and whether it was used for any illegal activities. Chances are Well, that some of it was. But we will get to that and to more. A Trump rally where he talks about the war as an excursion. We'll get to it. And on the Michael Medved show, we began the show by talking about an active shooter incident at Old Dominion University near Norfolk, Virginia. And for that one, the shooter has been neutralized, so there is no longer any danger. There is another shooting. The local law enforcement agencies in the Detroit area are responding to reports of an active shooter at Temple Israel, which is a very large, very well-established, beautiful synagogue in West Bloomfield, Michigan. I've actually had the honor of speaking there. An alert sent out by Farmington Hills Police indicated an active shooter event. West Bloomfield Police, these are both Detroit suburbs. West Bloomfield Police also confirmed. The Jewish Federation of Detroit provided the statement that, quote, "We are aware of a security incident at Temple Israel. We are advising all Jewish organizations to go into lockout protocol. Nobody in or out of your building. More information to follow." I hope that information includes the neutralization, if you want to use that word, of the shooter, and that no one has been seriously wounded or killed, no innocent people. This is all a serious matter. Meanwhile, the Republicans in Capitol Hill have blocked an effort from Democrats to fund all agencies under the Department of Homeland Security, except for those related to immigration enforcement. Democrats are holding their ground about reforming immigration enforcement, despite GOP pressure to end the department's shutdown. We have a deeply dysfunctional Congress. There is very little question about it. And speaking of a dysfunctional Congress, President Trump did his first campaign rally that was officially designated as a campaign rally. Basically, wherever and whenever he speaks in public, it's a campaign rally because he's so conscious of winning the midterm elections that are coming up in a couple of months. Trump has been speaking in Kentucky, Hebron, Kentucky, and he was also facing questioning, including a very probing question from Peter Doocy to President Trump. And the question and answer sounded like this. This is clip 20.
And we did a little excursion. We had to take this little few weeks of excursion, but it's been incredible. Our military is unbelievable, the job they're doing. I would say, to put it mildly, way ahead of schedule. So we had to take an excursion, but it's doing well. The market's holding up well. Oil will be coming down. That's just a matter of war that happens. You can almost predict it.
You just said it is a little excursion, and you said it is a war. So which one is it?
Well, it's both. It's both. It's an excursion that will keep us out of a war, and the war is going to be. For them, it's a war. For us, it's turned out to be easier than we thought.
Now, how can you say it is not a war for the United States, given the expenditures, which are threatening to rank up by $1 trillion, where soldiers have died already in this excursion? How do you define an excursion? An excursion is a short, often guided pleasure trip or outing to an interesting place for the purposes of relaxation and enjoyment. an excursion typically lasts a few hours to maybe a full day. Meanwhile, there are battleships, are subs involved, there are missiles, there are explosions, there is a great deal of property destruction. There was that horrible unintentional destruction of a girls' school in Iran that took 165 lives at least, maybe more. It's extraordinary that there's no distinction here between a war and an excursion, or saying it's both. Excursion is probably one of those inappropriate designations that is going to come back and to haunt President Trump in terms of his attempts to defend and justify and build popular support for what has become an historically unpopular war. President Trump spoke with WKRC in Kentucky, and he made this epic claim about Operation Epic Fury, which is the name of the U.S. operation that is still going on, and then tried to place that in the context of the little excursion that he prefers to acknowledge.
There has never been a better year for a president, first year, than what we had. That includes the stoppage of 8 wars with a 9th to come. And what we've done, the economy is roaring. It's phenomenal. That's why I'm here. This is an excursion, a little excursion, and I think it's only that. And in that little time, that short period of time, we've taken care of business. We took care of a country that was very dangerous, very bad, would have had a nuclear weapon if it weren't for me and the B-2 bombers and what we did not very long ago. They would have had a nuclear weapon, and we would have had levels of problem that nobody has ever seen before.
And there's nobody ever seen this kind of success before. Anderson Cooper on CNN questioned, if you're not already confused, he talked to the president about, are we winning yet, or are we not winning yet? And this morning, President Trump suggested that there was little left to do. So what do you make of where we are exactly? Do we need a new department? Not the Department of Defense, not the Department of War, but the Department of Excursion? Is that where we're standing? We will get to that and to more coming up on The Medved Show.
It's the Michael Medved Show.
Is that a great name?
Is that a great name? Epic Fury. Fury indicates your emotional reaction. It doesn't indicate any achievement toward peace, and which is somewhat confusing. In other words, is this a little excursion while the U.S. is, as President Trump has acknowledged, while the U.S. is considering other examples of epic fury, maybe against Cuba next? The Anderson Cooper on CNN talked about some of the confusion that has grown around what the president describes as the state of the war right now. This is Anderson Cooper on CNN, clip 19.
Victory would also mean the enemy and its surrogates would no longer be pouring missiles into northern Israel, but they are again tonight. This is new video of it. Yet the president declared victory today, and then just a few minutes later, he kind of undeclared it.
We don't want to leave early, do we? We got to finish the job, right?
He said it several more times. We've got to finish the job. Yet this morning, he also suggested there was little left to do, telling Axios' Barak Ravid there was, quote, Practically nothing left to target, a little this and that, and saying, quote, anytime I want to end, it will end. Now, if you're not already confused about that or whether we've won or not, listen to the president also today on what to even call what we are or aren't yet winning.
Okay, that needs to be listened to. There's also confusion about whether it was America and an American Tomahawk missile. There are only 3 nations in the world that have Tomahawk missiles and use them. It's the United States and Australia and the United Kingdom. The Tomahawk missile was not Israeli. The Israelis don't have Tomahawk missiles in their arsenal. And it certainly wasn't Iran, as President Trump has suggested, killing its own schoolgirls to try to change public opinion about this war. Here is President Trump outside the White House, who appears not to be up to date on the latest military report of the investigation of that destruction of that school in Iran. This is clip 17.
What? What you?
As Commander-in-Chief, do you...
For what?
For the strike on the school in Iran. A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
I don't know about it.
I don't know about it. He was asked if he takes responsibility, and he says he doesn't notify, he doesn't know about it. Wouldn't it be appropriate if some White House intern or somebody gave him some intel with the kind of money that we spend on intel? By the way, what happened to the director of national intelligence? She just seems to have disappeared, vaporized. Tulsi Gabbard. Isn't she supposed to keep the president up to date with intelligence briefings every day, or sometimes more than once a day? It's extraordinary. And meanwhile, there's a piece by Kate Brennan in the New York Times, and it's actually a very important piece and gives you a different context for what is going on with the war. She writes, nobody knows what the human or strategic costs of President Trump's war against Iran will be, but the hard dollar costs are mounting by the day. Last week, U.S. Central Command said that more than 50,000 troops, bombers, 200 fighter aircraft, and 2 aircraft carriers are participating in Operation Epic Fury. Our military is burning through munitions, striking thousands of targets, and using hundreds of sophisticated and expensive defense interceptors and missiles. Also, last week, 3 American F-15s were downed over Kuwait in an apparent friendly fire incident. The air crews were okay, thank God, but the aircraft would take at least $300 million to replace. Elaine McCusker, a top Pentagon official during the first Trump administration, told me that she estimates that by the end of its 6th day, the war's cost had already exceeded $11 billion, including more than $5 billion worth of interceptors to replace its arsenal. The Pentagon is expected to ask Congress for an additional $50 billion. That's right, $50,000 million. Meanwhile, Mr. Trump wants to add $600 billion to the Pentagon's annual budget for a whopping $1.5 trillion in the next fiscal year. This breaks all records. Now, we spoke yesterday about investments like $98,000 for a grand piano for the Air Force Chief of Staff for his home. We talked about spending in just the month of September last year, spending more than $1 million on lobster tail and steak, and which goes into the Defense Department budget. And They say in the New York Times, Kate Brennan reports that the war in Iran is Mr. Trump's costliest military operation to date, coming after he spent an estimated $2 billion bombing Iran's nuclear sites last June. That was Operation Midnight Thunder. I I may have gotten that wrong. But the war in Iran is Mr. Trump's costliest military operation to date, coming after he spent an estimated $2 billion bombing Iran's nuclear sites last June. Our understanding of the broader costs of the war will emerge with time, and we're already seeing instability, economic and otherwise. Russia is benefiting from the increase in demand for its oil as world energy prices rise because the conflict has disrupted the shipment and production of oil and gas. Uh, Law enforcement agencies in the United States and Europe are on heightened alert for potential terrorist attacks. We don't know if one of them is what's going on at that Michigan synagogue right now, Temple Israel. Law enforcement agencies in the United States and Europe are on heightened attack for potential terrorist attacks. And Mr. Trump has opened the door for other countries to wage wars of choice and aggression. These expenses become indefensible, she writes, when the administration is simultaneously gutting funding for science, research, and subsidies for healthcare coverage. Mr. Trump now may be eyeing regime change in Cuba, yet another country that doesn't pose an immediate strategic threat to the United States. On Friday, he said, Cuba is going to fall too. Well, fall to what and how? We are going to be speaking to Rich Lowry about where we stand in the war in Iraq and how we bring that war to a successful conclusion after all the battlefield successes that we have achieved so far. Rich Lowry, the editor-in-chief of National Review, joins us coming up right here on the Michael Medved Show. Rich Lowry is editor-in-chief of the National Review, and I'm very proud to say that he has been a frequent and much appreciated guest on the Michael Medved Show. He is the author of books like Lincoln Unbound, which remains indelible and important, The Case for Nationalism, and Legacy, paying for the price for the Clinton years. We now have questions about paying the price in many levels of currency for the Trump second term, which we're in the middle of. Before we start with Rich Lowry, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Michael Medved Official, and then continue the conversation there. Now, Rich Lowry, you have written a very powerful and important and relevant column that asks the question, did the U.S. get pushed into this war by the nation of Israel? Is there any basis for thinking that that is true? And if not, as I believe, if not, then what do we do to correct that misimpression?
Yeah, so this is based in part on something Marco Rubio said at a press conference that was distorted in real time, and he corrected in real time. He was talking about the timing of the operation. We all know in June, Midnight Hammer, Israel had been engaged in the 12-day war for days prior to us joining in. So Rubio is saying the timing here, we wanted to go simultaneously because if Israel moved and we hadn't moved, our forces were going to be hit anyway, and they'd be more vulnerable if we hadn't started at the outset as well and made this as big and robust as possible. And that became, well, look, Bibi Netanyahu has led Donald Trump by the nose into this war. We had no choice. We were forced into it by Israel. That's not what Rubio meant. He He corrected in real time. He addressed it the next day. Trump was asked about it, whether Bibi forced his hand, and Trump, in typical manner, said, "No, I think I forced his hand." But obviously, we sent this massive armada and air force over to the Persian Gulf, biggest since '03, not because of something Israel is going to do, but because this is important national security interest of the United States. And Donald Trump is quite committed to making sure this regime does not get a nuclear weapon. But there's so many people out there, not just on the left now, but on the right as well, that want to blame Israel first.
Okay, one of the people who wants to rebut that notion is Bernd-Henri Lévy, who is a leading conservative French intellectual who has called the notion that a small country of 9 million people, the size of New Jersey, the idea that a country like that can push the United States into anything is absurd. Other than that argument, just the discrepancy between America's world leading power and Israel's situation, aside from that discrepancy, is there other reasons to believe that actually this is not a conspiratorial plan of any kind, but the notion of two nations with very comparable and compatible interests?
Yeah, well, Donald Trump's just had a hyperactive foreign policy in his second term. He decapitated the Venezuelan regime, went and got Maduro. Did Israel force him to do that? Seems likely he's going to try to topple the Castroite regime in Cuba. Are the Jews behind that too? So this is just where he is now. This is a much bigger operation, but you can go back to 1980 and find Trump saying during the hostage crisis we should go hit them, and then he says, by the way, if we did, we'd be an oil-rich country. So he's already thinking of taking other people's oil 40 or 50 years ago. He said over and over again, we can smash them to smithereens. They'll never be able to get a nuke. And I do think the administration's exaggerated the imminence of this threat prior to the war, but there's no doubt they were reconstituting. And the worry was if they had a couple more years to really build up the missile force and the drone force, then it would be impossible to do anything. We see how hard it is now, even with Iran having a relatively depleted missile and drone force.
Do you think that President Trump was unaware of the risks to the international oil supply, or that any of his advisors warned him that the price of gas was almost surely going to go up as a consequence of this war?
I think they were aware of it, but they discounted it. And I think they have been caught by surprise the way Iran has been able to cut off the Strait of Hormuz, and not by sending the Navy there. We've sunk the Navy, but just if you just threaten people with droning them, tankers, if just tankers think there's any possible threat of getting hit by munitions, they're not going to go through, and they're not going to be able to get insurance. So that's why, I think this is going to be a bigger deal than Trump probably thought going in. And I think the optimistic case the Israelis and the Americans were probably thinking of is you get Khamenei on the first day and it's over, and the regime falls, and that hasn't been the case.
What happens? How do we get out of this war with success and with actually making the United States and the world safer? How do we bring this to a successful conclusion?
Well, I think you got to reopen the strait because you don't want the message to be sent that Iran just has the ability to close it whenever it wants. And you need to eliminate, as much as you can of the nuclear, the missile capability, the drone capability, and the IRGC's capability. I think we've made major steps in that direction, but there's more to do. But I don't think you're going to change the regime. At least it doesn't seem likely. And it feels to me as if there is a change in the regime, it'll be 6 months after this, where there's a popular revolt or something of that nature. But this is a regime that's quite entrenched. Even if its popular support is 80-20 against, the 20% have the guns, have demonstrated within very, very recent memory in Iran that they're willing to use them. So if they thought just you cut off the head of the snake and everyone rises up, that wasn't going to happen.
On another subject, talking about the head of the snake, you have recently written a column about Kristi Noem riding off into the sunset. Is she going to be joined by her friend Pam Bondi at some point?
I don't know. Both were selected for similar reasons. telegenic, like going on cable TV, extremely loyal to the president of the United States. I think Kristi Noem is getting a bad rap to this extent. It's not as though she was freelancing on the way she was handling immigration. That's what she was getting told by the White House to do. Now, I think she was ridiculous and incompetent on top of that, and maybe even corrupt, or people around her were. So I think it's a very good thing that she's gone. But I'm not sure. It took a lot for Trump to axe her, and I'm not sure Pam Bondi is close to that line yet.
Okay, Pam Bondi hasn't put together any expensive advertisements for hundreds of millions of dollars
Not that I'm aware. We haven't seen
about
Pam
her
Bondi
role in.
riding on any horses in a big ad campaign yet.
Yeah, and again, one of the stories is that this apparently is trying to give energy to her presidential possibilities in the future. You think there's any presidential possibilities for Kristi Noem
No,
in 2028 or 2032?
no, no, absolutely not. That's pipe dream, but it's the kind of pipe dream you have when
Well,
you're a
Democrats
politician.
do.
A lot of politicians have national ambitions, and then you have people around you who it's to their benefit to reinforce your delusion. And I think that's what was happening.
Your best guess as to the most likely Democrat to run against J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio next time in 2028?
If I had to bet, I'd bet the field over Gavin Newsom, but I think Gavin Newsom has the highest odds of any individual candidate. I think it'll probably be someone else, but he has a higher odds than any other Democratic candidate.
Okay, I mean, he is governor of California. Do you think he is vulnerable for people saying, look at the taxes in California, look at the homelessness, look at the other problems the state is experiencing?
Completely. I mean, the message that Democrats have hit on quite powerfully last year is affordability. And on every single metric in that regard, California is an utter disaster. And it's not things that happen to Newsom. Sometimes you inherit a bad situation or have bad luck. It's all the result of deliberate policies. And you've seen even center-left publications pointing out this is a problem for Newsom, including the Atlantic.
Pieces by Rich Lowry are posted at our website at michaelmedved.com. You can be notified automatically and for free about any of these interviews or interactions that we have and post from time to time at Michael Medved Official by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Coming up, we're going to be talking about the campaign rally. It's considered to be the first campaign rally since the outbreak of U.S. strikes against Iran. So what did we learn from this rally by President Trump for his supporters in Kentucky? We will get to that and to much more coming up in this greatest nation on God's green earth.